What's going on, folks? Ted from Immersion here, and I wanted to talk to you today about half-dragons, or remind you that half-dragons exist, and kind of talk about what I think we might get, or what you guys seem to really want in Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. Dragons are a hot topic right now because of that book coming out in just a little while, so I thought this would be as good a time as any to talk about it. So before we dive into the half-dragons, which apparently some people don't even know exist, I wanted to talk to you about the sponsor, returning sponsor, for today's video, our good friends at Describe. If you're unfamiliar, Describe is an online tool to allow you to add immersive box text to your campaigns to save you, the DM, the effort for coming up with all this stuff, and let a talented team of writers do it all for you. You've got maps, you've got all sorts of different options. They're working on new things, and you can see over 3,200 different scenes showing off a variety of things from characters to monsters to magic items to even situational encounters, like threat from a quest giver about betrayal. Now, when you go look up Half Dragon in the Monster Manual, the stat block they give you is a Half Red Dragon Veteran. And it just so happens that Matt Cernit, who I don't know if he's still, but used to work for Wizards of the Coast and did a lot of Lore You Should Know stuff with Chris Perkins, wrote the text block here on Describe for the Half Red Dragon Veteran. I thought that'd be a good place to kind of intro this. So, you find it hard to know how to feel about the dashing figure standing before you. He wears gleaming plate armor, clearly custom crafted to fit his figure, and confidently rests gauntleted hands on the pommels of sheathed swords. They say beauty is skin deep and to look past a person's outward appearance, but they never said anything about the crimson scales and black horns of someone who seems to be part dragon. So, thank you Describe for sponsoring this video. There is a link in the description. You can use the coupon code NERDIMMERSION to get 10% off your first purchase. So yeah, Half Dragon is a section of the Monster Manual. There is a little bit about what a Half Dragon is, and they give you some options where in the past, for the most part, a Half Dragon was the product of a dragon pairing with a humanoid. So a lot of dragons, especially, well, in 5th edition it seems to only be good dragons, but in older editions it was pretty much any dragon, I believe, could take on a humanoid form of some kind. And then in doing so, similar to how we would get demigods in traditional mythology, where a god would take on a humanly or form, would pair with some mate, a human mate, and then a demigod child would be born. The same process here would lead to half dragons. But they also give us some options, right? Like, so it could be a wizard spell, ritually bathing in dragon blood. A variety of these different things could lead to the transformation of becoming a half dragon. And then it tells you half-dragons are incapable of having natural offspring, so that's something we know right out the gate. Those that wish to propagate must find other ways to do so, almost always involving magic. And we get a little bit more about them, how they sort of take on the aspects of the dragon parent that they have. But this is one of the few instances in 5e where we actually get what I've talked about before, which is a template. Now, templates are wonderful things. And I'll tell you why. Because a template can be applied to any creature. Well, this one has some instances, but we'll talk about that. And then it basically doubles the amount of things you have. So if you have a whole book full of beasts, in this instance, it has to be a beast, humanoid, giant, or monstrosity to become a half-dragon, right? So no aberration half-dragons. But if you have a book, whether it be first-party, homebrew, third-party, whatever, that has beasts, humanoids, giants, or monstrosities in it, you have that stat block, and then if you apply the half-dragon template to it, you've now effectively created a new monster, doubling the number of options before you. So if we had a whole bunch of different templates accessed to us for a variety of different things, all of the monsters we already have, we just get more options, which is why templates are great. So when it becomes a half-dragon, it retains all of its statistics except for the following. Now, this part is kind of throwaway if it's your character because it's challenge rating, but it says to avoid recalculating the creature's breath weapon, apply the template only to a creature that meets the original prerequisites to the breath weapon table below. I think you could probably just toss it, but we'll talk about it. They get blind sight right out the gate, out to 10 feet, and dark vision to 60 feet. They get resistance to the damage type of whatever the base dragon they have. They speak Draconic, and then they get a new action, breath weapon. The half-dragon has the breath weapon of its dragon half. The half-dragon's size determines how it functions. And you can see it's got optional prerequisites if you want to use them for the different size categories. But if you are large or smaller, you get it as a wormling, huge as a young dragon, gargantuan as an adult dragon. So if you want to apply this, so there's no reason you couldn't make a half black dragon giant spider, right? So it's a spider dragon. Or a half red dragon fire giant, or a half red dragon ice frost giant, whatever you want to do. But this makes for very interesting combat. The only thing it doesn't really tell us, which I kind of don't like, is you have to look at the stat block to learn what the recharge is for the breath weapon. If you're going to have it be, I guess the breath weapon here, it says I guess it follows this. That's my point. It doesn't read cleanly to me, but so you would go to whatever the large, so if you're large or smaller, you would go to the wormling and then look up the stat for that wormling. So for a half red dragon, it gets a red dragon wormling's breath weapon, which is a 15-foot cone with a DC. Now, it also doesn't tell you how to determine the DC of the breath weapon, so I don't know if it's standard. Actually, let's go take a look at that, because that's an interesting thing. If a red dragon wormling has a DC 15, does yours not increase with it? Let's find out. Dragons. We need to go to red dragon. Scrolling down, green, red. Adult red. So no, take a look at this. So the red dragon wormling has a 15-foot cone with a DC 13 dexterity saving throw and does 76 fire damage. The half red dragon does a DC 15, but it doesn't tell us anywhere in the template how to determine the difficulty class for it. Now, my guess is, actually, I have no idea. Because I was going to say, if you look at the stat block here, its Constitution is a +2, its Charisma is a +0 as far as modifiers go. And it looks like across the board, the Red Dragon Wormling has better stats. So I have no idea why its breath weapon is too lower than the half-dragon version of it. So, again, my point is this was one of the original creatures from the original Monster Manual, suffered from the design of the time, but it would be nice to know how you determine this. And again, it's a recharge 5/6, so that's how we get that. But again, some flaws to be had there for sure. So I like half dragons. You can technically make your character a half dragon if your DM is on board. Your character could start as a half dragon. If your character was, let's say, a dragonborn, I think a really interesting thing to do is to have the dragonborn, if they so choose, right? It depends on the person, but maybe they quest to transition from a dragonborn to a half dragon. Again, I'm not talking in any terms of whether or not that makes sense in lore for your dragonborn, because as we know, everything prior to 5th edition is no longer canon. So if that makes sense, or that's something your character would like to do, if they're a silver dragonborn, and they'd like to ascend to be more like the dragon, the parent that they had, or their dragon ancestor, perhaps they find a way to ascend to silver half dragonhood, whether it be through ritual or otherwise. Maybe a blessing from a silver dragon could change them permanently into a silver half dragon. So that's definitely an interesting quest line or quest hooks, or it doesn't necessarily even have to be for a dragonborn, right? It could be for an elf or a dwarf or a gnome. They want to become a half dragon. That's a concept. They weren't lucky enough to be born in that way, so they would like to undergo some sort of ritual, whether it be on the up and up, like getting a blessing or some sort of high level spell, or doing something to entreat themselves to a temple of Bahamut so that they'll bless them with this, or something nefarious like that part about bathing in ritual bathing in dragon blood, where they go out and kill a bunch of dragons just to drain their blood into a pool to bathe in it. A lot of options. Or go to some crazy wizard and say, experiment on me, wizard, I want to be a half dragon. Let's see how it goes. A lot of interesting opportunities for roleplay and questing there. Again, depending on your campaign, your DM might possibly allow you to do this right out the gate. The only thing I would consider if you are the DM and the player, as we just saw with the red dragon, with the red dragon wormling, you're starting with a 15-foot cone that does 76 fire damage at level 1, and that recharges on a 5/6, so there's no limitation to how often you can do that other than when you roll. So you could potentially take out very many enemies in an early level encounter with a 76 cone breath weapon that you could do all the time. That being said, do I think we're going to get new rules for half dragons in Fizban's Treasury of Dragons? No, I don't. The only thing I think you might get would be the equivalency of some sort of flavor text stat block, allowing you to potentially remove the limitation that says a beast, humanoid, giant, or monstrosity can become a half dragon, and just allow it to be anything. That kind of seems to go more in line with what WotC is kind of getting at lately, with their kind of removal of restrictions to allow things, basically you as the DM or you as the player to do whatever you'd like to do. So you might get that. You might get rules for half dragon, half gem dragons, although nothing should really change. The only thing, I mean, everything here was pretty much standard. The only thing they might give half gem dragons is telepathy. You know, give them a little bit of psionic stuff. Because remember, if you're a metallic dragon, you get access to both breath weapons. So if you know, all metallic dragons have a damaging breath weapon and sort of a status crowd control breath weapon. If you were to be a silver half dragon, you would get access to both of those breath weapons as per the wormling or whatever the case may be. So maybe they do updated stats for gem dragons to give them something. That seems a pretty reasonable thing. So I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you have you played around with half dragons? Did you know they existed before this video? It's something very easy to just scroll right by when you're reading through the monster manual if you're not like actively reading each page. You know, you go from hag to harpy and just miss half dragon right in the middle. So, or if that's the case, have you had anybody do any of those kind of questing things that I've talked about to attain half dragonhood? Have you had a memorable encounter with a half dragon, whether as an NPC or as an enemy? And what do you think? Based on all of this, would you want new updated rules? And if so, what would be different? I can't really think of much other than if they add other age categories to dragons, then perhaps if they added some sort of younger style of dragon, maybe you could have something in there. I don't know. But yeah, I'm very, very curious what your thoughts are. Also, sorry, I've got like a little bit of a cold, so I'm sure you can hear it in my voice, but the show must go on. So thank you, Describe, for sponsoring this video. Thank you to all of you for watching. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, consider doing so, and I will see you all next time.